Today I want to talk a little bit about the retro handheld market. Now I know that a lot of you may be asking, what's up with that? Are you talking about the Nintendo Switch? No, I'm not talking about the Nintendo Switch. As a matter of fact, I'm not talking about any devices that you typically see released by the big names like Sony, like Nintendo. The retro handheld market is actually something that's outside of that. They're basically Android or Linux devices that let you play, as the name implies, retro games. You can emulate different types of retro consoles, from NES to SNES to PlayStation 1 to N64 even. To give you an example, I have here the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. I got this the beginning of 2022, and let me say, for the time that I've used it, I've really enjoyed this device. Now, it has its own Android launcher from which you can select consoles to play. For example, the last time I used this, I was playing The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and it's just really nice to be able to play it so conveniently on the go. And let me say, for those of you who are quick to say, oh dude, someone get the Nintendo Ninjas on the case, I'm talking about my legally obtained ROMs, right? I backed them up using a little device known as Save the Hero Builders. Now this is a little device that, as you can see, it's got cartridge slots here. It's got these different slots, and you can plug up your cartridges to this device and then back up your games on a micro SD card that is actually in this slot right here. So it's very powerful because you can back up things like NES games, SNES games, even Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games. That's primarily why I purchased this, because I had no way of backing up my Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. But Retroid announced their latest upcoming Retroid model, which is not the Retroid Pocket 4, because for those of you who have been following this, we're actually on 3 Plus already, and that is more powerful than the 2 Plus, but they announced that they will be moving backwards, at least in product design, and they are releasing the Retroid Pocket 2S. And I wanted to go ahead and play this announcement that they had, so let's jump right into it. Yeah, so you see how sleek it looks. And of course, this is really just a teaser, but you see it's got a very similar design. I really like the colors. They had a Retroid Pocket 2 Plus in a similar color scheme, but one thing that you'll notice is that the joysticks, they are actually joysticks from what I gather, versus the sliders here. Like, you guys know the 3DS, right? The 3DS basically has a slider, and that's what this one has. So the bottom right is a slider, and then this one is actually a more traditional joystick, kind of like one that you'd see on your pair of Joy-Cons on your Switch. Yeah, I mean, as you guys could see, it was a really sleek device. Now, if we go back real quick, I do want to take a closer look at this, right? So you'll see that they have changed the layout just a little bit. So instead of having the diagonal direction of the joysticks and the slider, where one is on the top and the other is on the bottom, it looks to be a more consistent layout with both of them being on the bottom and being straight up joysticks instead of sliders. But look at that, that looks beautiful. The D-pad also looks a little bit different in design. As for whether or not it will be different functionally, I can't say from just this video, but from my experience, the control pad was very responsive. It was very easy to play, at least the types of games that I like to play, basically platformers like Super Mario, Kirby. I remember playing Kirby Nightmare and Dreamland. Another thing that you'll see is that the speaker grills generally, it looks like it is positioned in the exact same location, but it looks like there are two buttons at the top there. I'm not really sure what those are. I see it looks like is that a play button on the top right? And then the top left one, I can't identify what button, what icon is on there, but it looks like they kept the metaphor for the buttons at the bottom. So the one on the left is the home, and then actually it looks like the middle one there is a return, and then I'm assuming that the one on the right is like what's on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, and it's just the start button. But man, I really like this color scheme. I went with this one when I first purchased this last year, the 2 Plus, because it was very reminiscent of not just the original Game Boy Advance color scheme, but also the GameCube controller. And I think that at the time, this particular color scheme, as well as the other ones that are being sold, I believe that they were sold out at the time, or there was a much longer waiting period. So I was just like, okay, purple it is. I think that this still looks pretty slick. But yeah, I'm really interested to see exactly what Retroid has to offer with this 2S. I am very interested in the specs, because the fact that they are going back number, at least in name, from 3 to 2, I am not expecting a very powerful chip set in this device, and I'm assuming that it's going to be another Android device versus a Linux device. From what I gather, Retroid has been running Android operating systems and not Linux like some of their competitors. But I was kind of hoping initially that this would finally be the one that would let us seamlessly play GameCube games and PlayStation 2 games, but then thinking about how they're going back in number, I'm assuming that it's just a way for them to revitalize this particular design where people maybe preferred just the smaller, more compact version than the Retroid Pocket 3. And I just don't think that this will be the one that will finally give us a seamless GameCube experience. Now, mind you, even on this device, you could get away with some GameCube titles, but admittedly, you would oftentimes have to use the PAL ROM of the game because, as you guys know, in Europe, the standard there is 50 frames per second versus 60 frames elsewhere. And you had to do all types of configurations to the Dolphin emulator. But anyway, I'm excited about the Retroid 2S, and I hope that you guys are as well. If you guys didn't hear, they also announced different color schemes. I think that I can actually let me go back to that to this right here. You'll see here that Retroid released this image onto their community tab on their YouTube channel. Basically, you've got similar color schemes as to what was originally released with the 2 Plus, but then at the very left, you see that they're ahead of the game here. They announced a metal edition ahead of time. Normally, people would just have to wait for the announcement of a metal edition of their consoles a little while after the base model is released. But yeah, that is the Retroid Pocket 2S. Would love to know your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think about the Retroid Pocket 2S announcement? Or are you guys even familiar at all with the whole world of Retroid handheld devices? I consider myself to be a novice still. This is really only my first retro handheld device, but let me say, from the time that I've spent with it, I've really enjoyed it, getting to play games that I grew up with, like Pokemon Crystal. And once again, my legally obtained ROMs, you Nintendo ninjas. Back off, Nintendo ninjas. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share for today.